A lot of time the decision to hire a HR professional is to be taken by people who are not personally HR practitioners. Then how do we actually come up with the right set of questions, with the right set of queries to be able to hire a professional who we feel can really add value to the human resource function in our organization? We will talk a little bit about that. So the first we need to understand that from an education standpoint, normally an HR professional would either have a degree or a course called as a Masters of Business Administration in Human Resources, or they would have a PGDBM, which is Postgraduate Diploma in Business Management, specializing in human resources. We also have a lot of people who do MSW, which is Masters in Social Work, who get into HR. Apart from this, you would have a lot of other people who have other competencies, who had the opportunity to learn different skill sets. But as time progresses, they pick up skills, they pick up various other advanced courses and get into the human resource function. So it's not what is the academic qualification necessary. HR is a skill that is gained by individually practicing and doing a lot of executive education and having a lot of exposure to HR practices. Therefore, when we are looking at a HR practitioner, somebody who we feel would really be able to add value to our human resource function, we need to be very clear in terms of what is the education they have in human resources. Now, when we say education, we are not talking only about their highest education, which is when they got into MBA or a post-graduation or a graduation. They, over the period of their professional life, they would have experienced human resource as a learning opportunity. Now, whether that's through crash courses, whether that's through certifications, whether that is through academic qualifications, or whether that is through any other type of structured learning, which in the end gives you a certificate, what kind of that education do they have? This will give you a good starting point to know how much effort the person has put into trying to build a career in human resources for themselves. The other aspect that we really need to look after and look deep into is what kind of a experience do they have in the area of human resources. Now, experience, when we say, means human resource is a vast subject. It is not only broad, it's also very deep. So you need to figure out that what is the requirement I have. A lot of time we say HR generalist, now it is referred to as HR business partnering. These are individuals who would have a knowledge of a lot of human resource principles, practices, systems, but in the broad sense. The other aspect we talk about is called as COE, which is a center of excellence. These are individuals who would have specific knowledge or a specialist knowledge in a particular area of human resources. Like you could have a COE for performance management. You could have a COE for rewards. Rewards is another name used for the compensation and benefits, payroll, and the entire process of rewarding people for their compensation and benefits. Or you could have people who are COE for learning and development. We now call it with different names, whether it's organization capability development, whether you have OE, organization effectiveness. Like this, human resources has a lot of areas where you can have specialists. Now, when you're looking at hiring somebody, you should be very clear what kind of role do you want a person to possess, a generalist role or a specialist role. If you're wanting a mixture, then you should be very clear about what kind of mixture do you want. A mixture with 80% generalist and 20% specialist, and if so, what kind of specialist? Do I want a training specialist? Do I want an HR operations specialist? Do I want a performance management specialist? Because if we expect a person to be having knowledge of entire human resource domain, and that too both in the breadth and the depth, then we are in any ways setting ourselves for failure. Because in the end, like any other human being, an HR professional is also not a superman or a superwoman. So once we have got that understood and that clarified in terms of what is the competency we are looking at, whether it's an HR generalist or an HR specialist role, then we move on to the third key area, which is called as the exposure. One of the best ways to figure out how much learning the person has got is also to see what the person has been exposed to. If you want somebody to have a understanding of your industry, yes, it's a very good idea to find out people who had the exposure to your kind of industry or an exposure to your kind of processes. It's not necessary that a person who is working as an HR practitioner in a human resource, in a auto ancillary industry will only be successful in an auto ancillary industry. There is a possibility that a person who's had the opportunity to work in a factory which has similar working like a automobile ancillary industry, any other OEM for any manufacturing machinery tool could also fit into this, because there is a process, a human resource process that works in the auto ancillary is similar to the human resource process that works in any other manufacturing machinery organization. So you look at that kind of an exposure. Once you have looked at these three buckets and you are able to figure out that this is the kind of person I want and this is the kind of resume or the job description which is fitting in, then starts the interview process. Like most interviews, then your job is predominantly to find out if the person is saying what they are saying and do they have the knowledge of what they're saying, and are they able to deliver by way of evidences or potential that this is what we have done and this is what we are doing. So if you can classify your needs and classify the responses of a candidate under these three heads and gauge them, you should ideally be able to get hold of a very good HR practitioner who can add value to your organization.